Hello and welcome to the third video in our Part 5 Java MTA course. Do you remember in this part we're going to be talking a little bit about debugging, and in this video we're going to be talking about the console stack. Importantly, this console stack is related to exceptions. So if you haven't watched my previous videos about runtime exceptions, please go back and visit that before watching the rest of this video. Okay, so we're going to quickly look at some of the key points and then look at some examples to help you cement that information. So again, the most important thing is, if you don't understand what exceptions are, you need to watch that video because you need to get an idea of what a runtime error is. Secondly, you need to know that the stack trace is a tool that you use to debug an issue. So it allows you to tell you, or it tells you where an error is and that journey that error has taken. This will make a little bit more sense when we see examples. Thirdly, and this is important, the stack is a data structure, and it means the main property or behavior of a data structure is it's the last in, first out structure. So you need to think of the stack trace as like a pile of magazines. You can only take the information from the top, and when you're putting it down, you push it down and then you put more information on top of it. So the one at the bottom is the first one that's been put onto that stack. So let's have a quick look at some examples. So let's say we have created two different classes. In the main method, we create an instance, my object, and then we call a method from that. And then in this method, there's going to be a runtime exception. Again, if you don't understand why this is a runtime exception, watch that video. So when then you run this code on the console, you'll see this. So in the terminal, the terminal section, you'll see this. So here we say there's been an exception in the main, and this is the exception. And then this is our stack trace here. So what this tells you is the first line of code that is executed for this exception is line 7. So this is what happens on line 7. Then the second line that is executed for this that has caused the exception is on line 5. So this is on line 5, and we can see in line 5 we're using this substring for the substring method for our string, which means because it's a method, we go to a new class and we go to line 1875. This pushes us to another class, or same class but another line in that class, of 1902. And lastly, it goes to a final method, the check bounds begin ends, and that's 3756. So this is like the journey that our exception has happened or has taken. So we can see it's from line 7 in the main to line 5 in the error to line 1875 in the string.substring, and then it continues. So it's a good way of having a look of that journey that error has taken, and then you can see what you need to change or what potentially you need to change to fix it or to improve it. So I'm going to throw some code at you now to get you a better understanding of how exceptions can be used. Okay, so now we're going to look at some code, and then what I would like you to do is have a look at the stack trace, and that has been caused because of the exception, and see if you can match it up with the method that causes that exception. I would also like you to try and explain that journey that the error has taken. So if you imagine that we have a separate class, that's the main method, and then this method creates the error object and then calls that method. What happens with that error as it goes through the code? Importantly, if we look at the keyword here, throw, what that does is instead of us using code to create the logic error or the exception error, we're just artificially throwing this exception error. So this is used quite often in Java just to test our exception handling code. Okay, so pause the video and see if you can answer the questions. So hopefully you've paused the video. We're going to be looking at the first one. So remember here, this is the app class. We don't have a picture of that code, and we're in that main method. What happens then is the error goes to the error class, which is here, and it's going to the exception 2. So we're in this exception 2, and we're going to line 14. So the logic that we've put in here, this takes us to this one. So even though we haven't really seen what's in those values, we still know what's happening, the flow of the code. This is then going to take us to exception 3, so this method. So we're here at the moment, and then it's going to be line 24. So line 3, the exception 3 is the method that is throwing that exception, and we have traced the journey that that exception has taken. The second one here, we've still got the same. So we start off at that app class in that main method, and that will be on line 7. We then go into the error class, which is the one up here, and we start off in exception 3. So this is our starting point. We then go on to line 20 here, which means we are taken to exception 1. So this takes us to exception 1. We then go on line 4, and that takes us to exception 2. And then, because of the logic from these two values, the thing that throws our exception is on line 16. So we know that method 2 is throwing that exception. So hopefully you've got a better idea of how the stack trace works now, and allows us to see the flow of the error as well as exactly where that error is caused. So hopefully you've now got a good idea of how you can use stack trace within your code to help debug. If you can explain what kind of information the stack trace gives you, you have a good understanding of the video. If you can describe the key property of that stack data structure that we use for the stack trace, that's even better. And if you can leave a comment below and talk about the kind of other tools that you like to use when you're debugging code, that would be brilliant. It would be nice to hear what other people are using, just to share the knowledge that we're all acquiring. If you found this video useful, please like or subscribe. And in the next video, we're going to be looking about how to manage our exceptions. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.